Hello, everyone. I'm Mitch Ryan Dursey, and I am at the theater during a pandemic. Yeah, this is the first time I'm seeing a movie since everything's been closed and and all that. The last movie I saw in theaters was The Invisible Man, and that was just before the theaters closed in Ontario, at least Canada. I am testing the waters of what the theaters are doing, just so when I'm go to see Tenet, which is coming out a week or two from now, then I get to prepare myself for what the theaters are going to be like, especially when I assume if Tenet is released, there's going to be a lot of people at the theater. So that's why I'm seeing today two movies. I'm seeing starting off with the Inception re-release, which it is happening. It's already been out for a bit, and apparently there's a sneak preview at the end for behind the scenes of Tenet. This is gonna be my sixth time seeing Inception in theaters, and it's for the 10th anniversary re-release. So that should be fun. But that's not important. What's important is I'm going to go see right afterwards at another theater. I'll get to that in a bit, but I'm going to be seeing Peninsula, a Train to Busan sequel. Let's put it that way. Train to Busan presents the sequel, which is Peninsula, and that's I saw the first one and I reviewed it, and so I'm excited to watch that movie. And I'm going to be seeing it in 4DX. So as long as nobody actually bites me like a zombie, other than that, it's going to be a pretty fun experience, I imagine. But I'll review that afterwards. So this is before Inception, but I'm not going to have enough time because I'm going to two different theaters. So I'm at currently the theater by Square One, and as you can see, it's very small amount of people here than what would usually be here at the theaters, and it's a Monday right now. So Winston Churchill is where I'm seeing the Peninsula. Usually if I'm doing a double feature, I usually try to keep it in the same theater, but they just didn't have the showtime for Peninsula here. And partly a reason why I pushed for the IMAX for the one here is because this theater is the only one nearby last time I checked that had 70mm projection. And I wanted to check out the theater for the IMAX here with the pandemic, because Tenet will be having a 70mm release of the film, and so if there's any theater nearby that is going to get a 70mm printing of Tenet, it's going to be this theater. So that's why I pushed for this theater for the IMAX for Inception. So this is me before seeing the movie, and to be honest, the first movie was fun, and I remember the first one being fun, crazy, zombie, and overall was a great zombie flick from beginning to end. And so I'm excited for the second because the first one was so popular and it did so well. I'm going to assume the second one's going to have more budget, more zombies, more bloody deaths, more maybe heart-wrenching moments. Who knows? We'll see what happens with Peninsula. Takes place 4 years after, which I think is the same amount of time between the first one and the second one being released. I could be wrong on that, but I believe so. It's around 4 or 5 years since the first one came out, and I really like the first one, and I'm excited to see what the second one does. Hopefully they amp it up, turn it up to 11. And the funny thing is, in the terms of story, I think I kind of remember what happened at the end of Train to Busan, but I'm not entirely sure. Like, a part of me slowly starting to get the memory back. So I purposely didn't rewatch the film before seeing the second one, because I just wanted to go into it as if, I'm going off a memory from something that happened 4 or 5 years ago. So in the terms of 4DX, I'm kind of hoping it would be the best of all the 4DX movies I've seen. I've only seen two other ones. So I've seen Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets in 4DX, and I saw 1917 in 4DX. 1917, because of the way the movie was shot, very smoothly, camera tracking, there wasn't a lot of stuff to it in terms of 4DX, and the parts where there was a good opportunity for a lot of 4DX didn't exactly happen, like the river scene. Like there was no any sort of dripping of water or anything, splash, mist, whatever. Like like there was a lot of lost opportunities, I felt, or maybe the 4DX feeder I went to see it in wasn't that great. Valerian, the City of 1,000 Planets, is currently the best 4DX experience I've had, because that one had bubbles at one point, okay? It's gonna be hard to top. I don't know if Train to Busan 2 is gonna have any bubbles, but I'm curious to find out. So hopefully the 4DX is extremely well choreographed and uses a full array of whatever's happening in the 4DX experience. And also, I just wanted to point out my new shirt. Enjoy the show, eh? And that is the Cineplex, the old ex-Cineplex host, Tanner. I forget his full name. Show picture. You probably recognize him there than on the shirt, but I just thought it would be kind of cool. And I don't really have a lot of Canadian orientated shirts, so I thought I should correct that. So hopefully the feeders are keeping on top of the thing, because if it spikes up too badly and the feeders close, then I guess I'm not seeing Tenet, and I'll be pissed, because then that means if they released it 1 week earlier, I would have been able to see it. So anyways, time to watch Inception and then Peninsula, or as it says on my movie ticket, Train to Busan presents Peninsula. I just watched Train to Busan in 4DX, the sequel, Peninsula. Before I get into that, I just gotta say a very quick overview of the Cineplex feeders and what they're doing for the COVID and defending against it. For the amount of people that are usually in there, from what I've seen today, which is hardly anybody, they had like the one by the square one, they only had I only saw the whole time I was there 3 people working there. There was one person at the front who they had the door wide open. They weren't even scanning the tickets or anything. And I saw one other walking around. I saw one who came in afterwards to try and clean the seats for the IMAX theater, at least. And then at the Winston Churchill Oakville Cineplex, I always call it Winston Churchill because it's near Winston Churchill Road, there was one person on the front. I didn't see how many people were at the snack bar because I didn't order snacks or anything. And then there was one person who came in after the theater to check in on it, and that was it. She scanned the ticket at the Winston Churchill one for the online and just asked, don't go into a seat that's not what you paid for. And so it's kind of funny. It's pretty relaxed on the they are very worried about the pandemic and cleaning and health and safety. They're full into that. It's just everything else seems really quite lackluster in either security for the theater or whatever, or so it's like, when Tenet comes out, when something major comes out in theaters, they're gonna be overrun. I think it's either gonna go 2 ways. They'll be overrun and people will be COVID will start rising again. They'll start closing everything again, or next to nobody goes in, and except for a couple of people like it is now. So when Tenet, I mean, there's so much hype around Tenet. I can see the theaters being absolutely swamped when that gets released. Time for what you came for, which was my review of Peninsula, Train to Busan 2, whatever. It was good, not as good as the first one. I thought they I because I forgot exactly the way the style the first one goes. I knew it was a little more concrete story in the terms of, they get on the train and then they have to get to Busan. I mean, it's very simple. It's in the title for the movie. Peninsula, they kind of did a Raid 2 type thing where Raid 1 is like solid. It's all in sort of one area, one plot sort of thing, where Raid 2, it opens up the world. It happens everywhere. I felt like that's what they did with Peninsula. And actually, I felt like Peninsula, Train to Busan 2, they were heavily inspired by movies over the last couple of years, several years since the first one came out, such as Mad Max Fury Road, John Wick series. What was another one? Well, The Raid, obviously. I've definitely felt like those movies definitely had a big influence on how they approached doing Train to Busan too. I think they could have, like, even if they titled it Peninsula on its own, I don't think it's a good title for what this movie is. I would have named it something like, because I didn't catch the name of the city or town they were in. But they should have called it Escape from wherever that was. So let's say hypothetically it was named Busan. It should have been named, this movie should have been named Escape from Busan. And it would have been a reference to Escape from New York. And it would have been, because in Escape from New York, they have to break into New York and then escape from New York. So that's kind of what they did with this movie. So that's a very basic and very mild spoiler. I didn't see any of the trailers for this movie. I just sort of went in as is. I just knew it existed and I was going off of the first movie. Some of the things was a little bit crazy. A little too I don't know. A part of me kept like, it kept going, okay, it's grounded in reality, but it's just absurd what is happening, how it's happening. I mean, most of the driving scenes, everything looks like almost like a video game. Like this would have made a great video game, it felt like. But Train to Busan 2, it's just, I don't know, it's some of it was, it bugged me in the beginning. Overall it was good. It's just nowhere near as great as the first one, I felt. It does have its moments that makes it worthy of a sequel to Train to Busan. And the plot wasn't that bad. I was invested enough, and I really kind of liked the conflict of how all the stories were interacting with one another. Zombie genre is a little bit stale, but there was just enough newness about this film that that felt, I guess it was a pretty original, it's not really original take on the zombie genre, but it's fresh enough to be worthy of, Train to Busan, I guess. Once again, the action scenes were crazy. 40X review, this movie was like the car scenes, chasing and all that, amazing. Fight scenes, amazing. Like this was top tier 40X. Granted, I think the smoke machines were broken, and I think in the theater I was in, and there was no really any filling water, even though there was an opportunity for a little bit of water, but nothing much, nothing major. So, but the car chases, oh my gosh, there was one scene, I think the first major one after the truck scene where he gets picked up in the SUV with the kids. Okay, that kid driver is OP. That first one paid for the ticket sale. Her driving as they're escaping the zombies was like fucking intense, and it's just absolutely wow. That I felt like I was in Canada's Wonderland ride. It was everywhere. I almost fell out of my seat at certain points of the film with the 40X. Okay, so spoiler wise, there's several moments throughout this where it's like somebody important or somebody who's important to somebody else dies, and it's like the scene sort of a little bit drags on and it stops everything. Like if they're in the middle of a zombie attack and they're all like, obviously it would have been very simple for a zombie to bite them in that moment, because they spend so much time standing there not doing anything, being like, oh, this is sad. And I felt like there was also, not only was there too many of those moments, but it felt like those moments lasted forever. And I'm like, they could have just hurried it up a bit. They could have, they didn't have to stop the entire movie to do a little moment of, oh no, and I felt like, yeah, I ran and did that throughout the film. I mean, the beginning, they tried to sort of do a 28 days later, or not 28 days later, 28 months later opening, but nothing's really ever gonna top that opening for a zombie film, at least not that I've seen, or not that has happened yet. The budget, yeah, it does look like they had more budget, but at the same time, there's a lot of moments in this where I'm like, that's very cheesy, that's very video gamey, that's very like you can see the budget. You're on the edge of the budget in several scenes, especially the action scenes. But some of the set areas, like the indoor mall that they turned into sort of arena thing, that was very coolly designed. And overall, I kind of liked the how they're all sort of in some ways fighting over either the money, or fighting over the they're fighting over the trip that they can finally get home now. But the ending felt like it was very extended. Like everything that happened after the boat scene at the end of the movie, I felt like was really, they were milking it to drag on. It felt like like I understand a little bit of it, but they could have, didn't have to be structured in such a way that it takes forever for them to actually get onto the helicopter and all that. I'm sorry, it's just, I don't know if it's just is but overall, this was just good enough to be good. Okay, it wasn't a great film, but it was good, and it was enjoyable, and I was able to go through it. I was very invested in what was happening in the characters. It's just, I don't know how well this movie's gonna hold up on a repeat viewing, especially without the 40x. I mean, the 40x kind of sold me on the movie. I mean, the scenes, car driving, it didn't matter how cartoony it looked, or how fake or over the top it was. The 40x made me go, I don't care, I'm having an amazing time. So anyways, I want to know what you thought of Train to Busan. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. I want you to have a nice day, or night, or whatever time you watch this. Have a nice whatever.